Thank you. There you go.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. So thank you for coming tonight. My name is Sally Lopez. I'm the chapter president of the Phoenix chapter of Young Catholic Professionals, which is the nation's largest and fastest growing organization of Catholic young professionals. In this broad national network, you have a family of peers all striving for the same thing, working in witness for Christ, and growing in confidence to live our faith openly in the world. YCP's mission is to provide you and all young adults in their 20s and 30s with the belonging, support, and encouragement you all need to live your faith in joy, confidence through your everyday work. If you know someone who could benefit from the community too, please invite them to our next event. So in just a few minutes, our speaker will share with us a real-life example of being a witness for Christ through everyday work. I'd like to remind you that this event, the second speaker series, is just one of the programs that YCP offers. There are many more, and you'll hear more about them a little bit later. So I'm pleased to introduce you to now Father Alex, who guides us deeper into our faith as our chaplain for us, for the YCP chapter. So if you ever need to talk to someone, he's there to support you all too. So let's invite Father Alex to lead us in a prayer.
Thank you, Sally. Good evening, everyone. Does anyone know what feast day it is today?
The Ascension.
That is Sunday. Good guess, though. Good guess. It's been moved to Sunday.
Lady of Fatima.
Our Lady of Fatima? I truly didn't know. Maybe it is. Is it? I didn't know. I was really asking that question. Okay. Well, Sunday is the Ascension. So as we close out this Easter season, continue to ask ourselves, are we elevating our hearts, our minds, and our thoughts? All that we do towards God, towards heaven. And that's the mission of YC. So let's begin now with prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you bestow on us each day. Thank you for the gift and the presence of each person here. Open our hearts and our minds to one another. Bless our speaker, Jeremy. May his talk inspire, challenge, and encourage us to be better Christians in our work lives and in our personal lives. And I ask that you give us the strength and the courage and the grace, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, to carry out our YCP mission. Amen. St. Joseph the Worker, pray for us.
Thank you, Father Alex. So before we invite our speaker, I want to bring up two individuals. We, this past week or so, we had our YCP National Conference in Dallas, Texas, where we met, where everyone from different chapters from the United States came to the conference to meet with other young adults with the same faith. So I want to bring up Ronnie Rosas. He's going to just kind of tell you guys his experience there and what YCP is all about.
How's it going, guys? I'm by no means like a public speaker, so forgive me if I screw up sometimes. So I'm here to talk about like my testimony in regards to like YCP Phoenix and the YCP conference. And I like to start out with a quote taken from Saint Basil. So, a tree is known by its fruit, a man by his deeds. A good deed is never lost. He who sows courtesy reaps friendship, and he who plants kindness gathers love. So the key words for me is deeds, courtesy and friendship, and kindness gathering love. So I'll kind of go through that throughout my speech. So start off with YCP Phoenix and how it's really increased my faith in my life. I grew up in Southern California, Orange County. I know you guys probably think like, hey, that's like a really affluent area, but I actually grew up like in the war city of Orange County, Santa Ana, St. Anne. My family was a practicing Catholic family, so that's all I can console in was just my family. All my friends were secular. I didn't go to any Catholic schools growing up. I was just kind of in and out between like trying to find my identity between like being secular, being a practicing Catholic, secular, practicing Catholic. Like I've grown up going to like confirmation with like gang members who like their family wants them to go to confirmation with me because they know like I was a good kid, I was an athlete. So that's like a little bit of my upbringing. So coming to YCP Phoenix, I just meet so many people, and there's so many people who are inclusive, who want to help me out, increase my faith, and instantly, like the first one that first conference that I came to was like 2016 or 2017, where you just instantly meet 67 people and just gain friendships from there. And so, like I was saying, I was kind of struggling with my identity between becoming like secularism and practicing Catholic, being a practicing Catholic. But I always remember what my friend down in Tucson, I have a really good friend in Tucson, he says, one day his daughter walked up to him and she said, "Hey Daddy, who am I?" And my friend Anton answered her and says, I'll tell you who you are. Who are your friends?" So that really set in stone with me. And this is kind of like that was like the starting point for me, just increasing my faith, because now I have Catholic friends who are like-minded with me, and we engage in different activities, but we're all safe. We can do the same thing as like all the other people, but we're just safe. We can hold each other accountable. So YCP friendships, there are people that I can count on. Moving on to YCP Dallas conference, it was an amazing experience. There was about 330 plus people. Was it like 26 cities within the country? My most memorable chapters that I've talked to were like Portland and Detroit, Dallas, Austin. But those are all people who I can just message. We were all networking, people passing out cards. So like I can message them and visit them later on. I do have some like trips that I want to take with them. Like even if there's like a YCP conference in their city, I can go to. That was all made possible because I just took that step. And it was great to have an organization here in Phoenix that also offers that opportunity. With the Dallas conference, I have experienced courtesy and friendship from the quote. And like I said, there's a lot of contact, people passing out cards. Like if you're in the industry, if you're working in the industry, you can work with someone else remotely who's Catholic, who's in the same industry as you. It doesn't have to be in the same city. And that's the beauty of going to the conference. And it's all about inclusivity. There was people who went by themselves and nobody was left behind. There was, after the conference, like every night it was a close. People would always go like eating dinner afterwards, or like going to dancing places afterwards at different venues. And nobody was really left behind. So that was really good to know going into it, because I didn't really know what to expect. We had a pretty good group, like maybe 8 or 9 people, but I really didn't know what to expect with the conference. They dealt with keynote speakers. You were able to get involved with sacraments and small group sessions. We had the gala towards the end and the dance. And hands down, my favorite part of the whole conference was my buddy Robert Brown. He's from the Detroit chapter. He was one of the keynote speakers, and he kind of grew up with like me. Like he was he was an orphan child, so he was kind of coming in and out of homes, and he just spoke with so much conviction. And the one thing that I remember that him speaking about was how the devil is always trying to manipulate you and trying to get you to become depressed, or maybe trying to, commit suicide, doing harm to others. And he was talking about how the devil always tries to go past the head of the church and hit the body of the church. So he's trying to get past Jesus, past Mary, past the Holy Spirit, and he's trying to target us, the body of the church. So one interesting thing that I found from him was that he says that we all have to be equipped. We have to have our equipment. We have to have our weapons. And he says that his weapon was the Magnum 357. And when he actually pulled out the rosary and the St. Joseph medal, that was his weapon. Because we're actually calling on the head of the church. We're actually calling on Jesus Christ, our Blessed Virgin Mary, St. Joseph, the Savior of the Savior. We're calling on the head of the church. The devil's trying to get through the head of the church, go past him and hit the body. So we need to remember all the time when we're going through rough times, we got to rely on our weapons because they'll help us out. There's been many times where, it's spur of the moment, and I'm in a bind, and I don't know what to do. I don't call on the Holy Spirit, and it never really works out for me because I just forget, or maybe it just happens so quickly. But to hear someone's speech so inspiring and so convicting, that's what it's all about. That was the one part of the conference that made it all worth it for me. And he was actually one of the best speakers I've ever experienced. And once again, he was from Detroit, Robert Brown. So moving on to deeds from the quote. When I got to Dallas, I told almost everybody that I could that to ask them to pray for me because I'm applying for PTA school, and I've been, it's been peaks and valleys ever since I've transitioned from because I'm a marketing student from the U of A right now. So yeah, the transition between going from logistics to physical therapy for 6 years, trying to get into PTA school, even all the Catholic schools rejected me. Going into PTA, just applying for school, I needed all the prayers that I could get, and everybody was willing to give those prayers and offer them up for me. And going back to the quote, the deed actually was never lost either. People would follow up with me after the conference and say, "Hey, Ronnie," like on text message or Facebook message, or maybe even calling me, like, "Hey, how's that application going?" Like, it was a real thing. It was a genuine feeling. It was a genuine prayer from them, and that meant the world to me. So let's see where I'm at. Yeah, so basically, thanks be to God, and it was all set up for a reason, because after I got home from my trip, like that Monday, I got the acceptance letter, and I just thank everybody for it. And it just means so much to me, because the power of prayer is very strong, and sometimes it may not seem like it's strong, like at times where like you're in a bind, but God's working His ways, and you just have to surrender yours to His and just let go of that God. So that was part of the deeds for the quote that I had. And then just going back to YCP Phoenix, we all try to plant kindness in our local community so we can gather love all around us, and that's what this night is about here. YCP is a very strong organization. I heard in the next 3 months they're expanding 4 chapters in just 3 months. They're going to be expanding into different countries, and that's fantastic. When I grew up, I never had any access to, or maybe I just didn't know about this type of resource. But it's here and it's live, and it's up to us to keep it going, keep it live. So what I'm asking for you guys is just let's just help grow our chapter, increase its strength, and just become a regular here, and let YCP Phoenix chapter help you increase your faith. We just need to keep nourishing the body of Christ, and this is the way to do it. Like, this is Phoenix there's a very high demand for events like this, and this is a great way to nourish the body and to become active this way and stay active. Just keep it strong. There's an artist quote that I always remember, and I kind of lived like this my whole life because I didn't have access to such organizations. And there's the artist says, you got what it takes, but you don't have enough to get started. And what that means to me is I've always had this fire in my heart to gain access to friendships. Like I know pretty much, like, maybe almost all of you guys, but it means the world to me. But if there's no activation energy, I'm not sure if there's like any chemists in the room, or people who took chemistry, but yeah, like the products and the reactants, some reactions don't happen by themselves. You need activation energy, and that's what all you guys are here for. Like, we gotta go out there and invite people and bring people and keep people and just nourish the body, keep nourishing the body. And that's basically all. That's what YCP Phoenix chapter is about. And that's really all I had.
And then I'm going to invite Mary. She also attended the national conference, and she's also our assistant director of the outreach.
If I'm honest, I'm not super excited to follow Ronnie because that was so thoughtful and beautiful, but I'll try to keep this short and sweet. My first conference was in 2019, and I was on the leadership team for San Diego, and I didn't know what to expect, and they had just encouraged me to go, and I had work in the area, so I kind of just went, but wasn't really expecting to enjoy it that much. But I was really quickly realized that it was, the programming was so thoughtful and so good about attending to the whole person. And I think that's something that's unique to Catholic anthropology, where we recognize, you have the intellect and you have the spirit, and, Catholics like to party just as much as they like to, read the Summa or something like that. So the programming in terms of the speakers was really, really substantial. Like, I walked away from each speaker thinking, wow, I was really moved by what they had to present in terms of if it was, something theological or something related to business. As an entrepreneur, I've benefited so much from the relationships that I've made through YCP, and they've turned into strategic partnerships in some instances. So both in 2019 and in 2021 this year, those I was just blown away by having the opportunity to meet people who have achieved amazing professional success. So just being in the same room with them and having them interested in what I was doing, and then just knowing that at no point did they need to separate themselves from their Catholic identity in order to achieve that success. In fact, they all attributed their success to clinging to their faith and to not being ashamed of it. So that was so inspiring and so enriching. And then just the communal aspect of it was so unexpected. In 2019, I went as a leader for marketing, and our whole cohort just coalesced. we kept in touch all of 2020 through the lows of COVID, and checked in on each other and sent each other like chosen like episodes, like, have you watched this one? It'll help you in this moment, which was awesome because 2021 we had Jonathan Rumi present at the gala, and he was with us the whole weekend. Like, typically keynote speaker for the gala, he just comes, they just come, pop in, pop out, they don't want to be mobbed, but he was there with us as one of us the whole weekend. And that's just not something you get to experience, in any kind of group. So, yeah, I hope this is helpful in some way, but I have nothing but like love for this organization, because I've experienced how it's changed my life professionally and personally and enriched it in so many ways. And then I've seen it in friends. I've seen people meet their spouses, and I've seen people get into the job that felt like a vocation and not just like something that put food on the table. So as with anything, it's you get what you put into it, and I feel like God has great plans for this chapter, and I know God has great plans for YCP in general, and so it's an exciting time to be a part of the organization, put your gifts into it, and see what God has planned, for it to grow. So thanks for being here. Thanks.
Thank you, Ronnie and Mary again. And hopefully you heard like a glimpse of like what the national conference is, but also about YCP here in Phoenix. So please keep attending our events. We do have different types of events, and you'll see it'll bring a lot of fruit to you. So let me now let you present you to our speaker tonight. He exudes enthusiasm, servitude, and honor in all that he does. Being born and raised in Kodiak Island, Alaska, his experiences in commercial, fishing, wildlife guiding, and construction have instilled a valuable foundation for working in different environments where the number one focus is helping others. He has valuable knowledge gained through experiences in residential commercial construction, as well as an array of real estate transactions. His core values in faith, family, and friends guide him to provide a trustworthy and peaceful experience for his clients, and hope to create a lifelong partnership. He is a licensed contractor and director of operations at Brand Contractors, realtor, and high school science teacher. He has been married for 18 years and has 4 children and 1 on its way. So let's invite our May executive speaker with a warm welcome, Jeremy Williams.
So I'm extremely humbled. If you turn back the clock 42 years and you look at Kodiak Island, Alaska, and you meet a 17-year-old pregnant lady, and she's walking across her high school graduation. I'm in the womb, and that's kind of the beginning of it. And then so she was 18 when I was born. She wasn't married, no Catholic faith or anything like that. She kept me, which is an awesome blessing. I was raised by my grandfather, and we fished and we hunted, and I learned all that stuff growing up. And I learned construction. I think my first bath as a baby was in a wheelbarrow on a job site. And then, I had big curly hair growing up too. And so in Kodiak, there's only like 5,000 people. So everybody knew everybody. And so I got picked on a lot growing up, like big Ronald McDonald curly hair. So I would like run from school, make sure the bullies didn't get me. I would run from school, try to get to Grandpa's house. And if I got to Grandpa's house, nobody would mess with my Grandpa. Nobody would mess with my mom either. So like if I can make it there. So by the time I was like 8 or 9, I kind of had this victim mentality, and people bullied me and stuff like that. But then I had an uncle who I looked up to a lot. And there was one day we were sitting in the garage and I was kind of complaining. I was unsure of myself and stuff. And he's just like, look, you're being annoying. And, you know, be tough. And so I kind of was like, okay, all right, I get it a little bit. And so I kind of broke out of that little bit of a shell, right? And then finally it was like, all right, I'm gonna start playing sports. So I started playing sports, a little confidence in myself and stuff. So I grabbed a basketball, I grabbed a baseball, I grabbed anything I could have, and I started to play. And I got better and better. And because of those bullies, when I was growing up, I got fast. And so I could beat everybody in a race. So they put me in wrestling, and I started winning championships in wrestling. I started running everywhere, and I started beating people all over the place. I won the softball toss at school. It was like insane. So I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. This is awesome. And so I got to about third, fourth grade. My sister, my little sister, who's one of my heroes, she has cystic fibrosis. And so the winters up in Kodiak got really, really tough. And so we decided in 1989 to jump in a Dodge Caravan. And they were about to tear me away from these championships, my friends. I mean, I was starting to like own the school. It was Maine Elementary, and everybody thought I was the coolest guy in the school. So, I mean, I had a crush on my third grade teacher and, you know, all that stuff. So they're like, no, we're moving. You're getting out. We're getting in a 1989 Dodge Caravan. Your sister needs to move, and we're going to go find the hottest, driest place on the planet. So we drove down to McCormick Ranch. It's Scottsdale, Arizona. So it's like, okay. So I get down there, and I got some confidence and stuff. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting on a bus, and I don't know who Michael Jordan is. I don't know some of the names and stuff they're calling me. I'm like, yeah, I am that. And I was like, no, you don't want to be that. Like the bus driver would be like, you don't want to do that. So I started going through this whole pick-on thing again. I was like, all right, back to my shell. And then all of a sudden, the sports started in like 5th, 6th grade, and there it goes. I get to play. And so I got a little bit more confident. And so I had that confidence pretty much all the way until, I don't know, high school, played basketball, did track, all that stuff, went to state and all that stuff. Went into college, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty good. But then I got like hit hard with the whole academic thing because you never really had to study back then. And so all of a sudden it's like, hey, you really want a degree? Because my parents, I'm first generation college. Nobody else in my whole entire family has ever been to college. I'm Alaska Native, so my tribe is Sunak. And so to go to college was a big deal. So finally it was like, okay, you're going to study, you got to get a degree. I was like, all right. So then went up to NAU, go to Lumberjacks, and it's the Ivy League of the West. And so I was like, all right, I got to step it up. Started studying and stuff, joined a fraternity, learned a little bit about leadership, gained a little bit more confidence, right? It was like, okay, I can start to speak and stuff. Yeah, sorry about the camera, I'm one of those guys. And so started to speak a little bit more, be a little more energetic and stuff. And so finally it was like, all right, what do I want to do? Because my parents have a whole different side. Nobody went to college, nobody studied, nobody got any certificates. They made a living with their hands. Either fished or built or did something with their hands. And so it was like, we don't want you to do that. You're going to go to college, you're going to get a degree, you're going to do something. I was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? What do you want me to do? And so I went to school and I fell in love with coaching and teaching. Just absolutely fell in love with it. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to do that. I get to help a lot of people. So I started to study a lot, started to read. I didn't really read a whole lot. Like I got accidentally put into an honors English class in high school because the other kid was named Jeremy Williams, and they flipped their schedule. Oh, no. And so I got in class with Miss Rhodes Wildman, and I show up in her honors English class sophomore year, and she's like, "Hey, here, read the To Kill a Mockingbird, or read this book." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to the gym and go shoot baskets, or I'm gonna go do this and this." And she's like, "No, you're gonna read this book." And I was like, "Look, it's November. I'm not gonna read the book. It's the end of the semester. Come on, just." You know, what do I got to do? Just give me a worksheet to work on or whatever. I'll fill this out. And she goes, no, you need to read a book. And so she started like putting all these books together. And she goes, pick one of these. And I'm like, all right, what's the skinniest one? I'll just do that one. And then, but she goes, no, I think you'll like this book. And it was The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. And so I grabbed that book, started reading it, and I'm like, all right, I get it. But I never finished it. Got about halfway. Basketball season was going on, didn't have time. So then in the spring, she gave it to me again, read it a little bit more. I did do a book report on it. I also did a poem on Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers. And so I passed the class, got through that honors, my one and only honors class. That kind of triggered the whole reading thing in college. So in college, I really started to read anything I get my hands on. I was reading about how to do tax liens, how to run business, how to, all this stuff. Just reading everything I could because of that book. And so by the time I finally was about to graduate college, it was about 3 semesters out, and I'm in a pool hall, and I look over, and I see this girl walk in, and all the lights and all the bells and whistles happen and all that stuff. Went right up to her. Hey, I'm Jeremy. I kind of had a little bit of confidence and stuff. Hey, I'm Jeremy, and nice to meet you. Welcome. We're having a function and stuff with the fraternity and sororities and stuff. Hey, what's your name? I was like, Elaine. Nice to meet you, Elaine. Have drinks, have food, and everything like that. Walked away, and she said, Elaine. So, not Elaine. She said, oh. And I was like, all right. So I go back to her and I said, hey, you said your name was what again? And how do you spell that? That was the worst move I ever made, gentlemen. Ever made. I've been married 18 years, and that is the one thing that she will never, ever, ever let me forget about, is that I forgot her name. Don't ever forget the name. Like, ask right then to spell it, whatever it is. So you got to know that. That's my biggest, tip to you guys tonight. So anyway, I met her. By this time, my best friend in high school was a Lutheran pastor's kid. I bailed him out of jail twice. So we went to church a few times together, but it was one of those situations. And so I never really went to church a whole lot growing up. Well, this new woman says, hey, why don't you come over and go to the Newman Center? All right, check it out. Walk in, had no idea what was going on. And she didn't prep me at all. She's just like, here, come with me and do what I do, and then you'll be fine. And so sure enough, I just walk right in. I do the whole first mass. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of cool. And then I remember a moment when we were walking out of that first mass that I ever did, and I remember the moment that my grandfather died. And he's the contractor who started our family business. I was in college, I was a sophomore in college. I went up and worked for him. He had cancer. And so we went up there and worked for him for a few summers before he died. And the morning that he died, passed away about 2:30 in the morning, the sun rose, and in Alaska during the summertime, the sun barely sets, right? It's like all the time. So it's like sunrise was like 3:45 in the morning. So I was crushed, didn't know how to handle death, and it was first death for our family and stuff. Didn't know how to handle that. So I went all the way to the roof, and I was up by the chimney on the roof, and I got to watch the sunrise. And I just felt him as part of my life from then on. When I walked out of Mass, I felt that same thing. And I was like, wow, it's kind of cool. Well, my wife never once asked me to go again. I invited myself. I went when she would come down here to see her family, because I eventually married into half of Chandler, by the way. And so she would come down here. I would sneak to Mass. And I remember the first time I snuck over to Mass, just get up in the morning, and everything, put everything on. I rolled in with a hat. I was like, yeah, just throw a hat on, I'm going to go to church. So I'm looking around, nobody else has a hat. I'm like, oh, put the hat down. Like, I literally had no idea, no training, nobody told me, I didn't even know what was going on. So eventually, I did that 3 or 4 times by myself. She'd come back up, but we got really close, super close and everything like that. And then one day, I just told her, I was like, hey, I'm going to do RCIA. So, joined RCIA, phenomenal education up there. Dove right in, asked a ton of questions, all the stereotypes and everything. I started to hear all that and everything. My grandma, who's a very Christian woman, she's like, you're doing what? I got that whole thing, the whole vibe from the family and everything like that. That's okay. And so I decided when I graduated college to, number 1, get engaged. Number 2, I accepted my first teaching job at the same school I'm at, still, 19 years later. Number 3, I put down a down payment on a mortgage for my first house. And then last but not least, there's probably 2 or 3 other milestones in there. Last but not least, I decided, I'm going to go through with this. I'm going to become Catholic. And I did all that in about 2.5 to 3 months. I just went, bam, bam, bam. Might as well. Let's go. Start this whole life thing. I tell you what, I went through everything. I found out too in that process that I was secretly baptized Russian Orthodox because my stepdad was an atheist. So my mom snuck me to this little Russian Orthodox church on Goodyear Island, got me secretly baptized. I was like, Mom, you're awesome. That saved me hours worth of stuff. So it was great. So anyway, went through the whole process and everything, and I came out on fire. So my uncle gave me a little bit of confidence, right? And then I started playing sports. Got to high school, got to college, got pretty good at some sports. A little bit more confidence. But man, when I came out of that church that night, I was like, nothing's stopping me. These kids that I'm going to teach, they have no idea what's about to hit in the classroom. Like, they think they're going to learn science. I'm going to give them everything I got all the time. Doesn't matter who or who's there or what they're going to talk about or anything. And that's what it turned into. It was like these moments in our lives give us these little steps, and you don't even know what's happening half the time. I didn't realize this until about 10 years ago. So I'm like teaching for 9 or 10 years, and I'm like, where did this confidence come from? What happened to that little Ronald McDonald little kid who got chased and, you know, his face got rubbed in the dirt? What happened to that guy? I'm like, after I became Catholic, it was like, why are you scared of? No? Who cares? No? And that's one thing that is so easy to say and 10 times harder to do. But everybody in this room already has that. You have that confidence. And my wife's great at that. I'm still trying to get her to buy into that. She's like, you're going to do what? You're going to go speak in front of, it's like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. Do you know exactly what you're going to say? Do you have it all written down? I was like, I've got some stuff. Yeah. Yeah, but I got an idea. I can have a message. So that's kind of one thing I always want anybody I talk to is to know how awesome you are. I tell my students every single day. I tell my project managers. I tell my framing crew. I tell any of my clients when we're going through something hard, you are awesome. And that's one thing that we have to know. And it comes from little things in your life, and then also comes from our faith. So, all right, that's enough about me, of course. So now I'm in this position where teaching full-time high school, realtor, and now I'm running a family business, which I tried to stay out of for decades. I got roped back into it. So running all this stuff, and I've got my 5th kid on me. And I think my wife loves me pretty well still. Right? So how do you do all that? And it really comes down to a few things. So number one for me is grit. And there's a lot of research, there's a lot of stuff that you can read about grit. So think about it. What ways, or first of all, what do you think grit is? Anybody tell me, what do you think grit is? What is grit to you? Yes?
Perseverance.
Perseverance. Nice. What else? Drive. One more. I love doing things in threes. Man, I could shoot 2. What else? Give me one more. What is grit?
The ability to do the hard things.
Do the hard things. Most of the time, nobody else wants to, and you're the one that does. Right. Okay, so being gritty. Okay, being gritty is awesome. It's a good thing. So that's the first thing. And you can research it. There's a ton of books on it. There's a bunch of stuff. Second thing I would say is the growth mindset. If you asked me when I was 12, 13 years old, how many books would you have read by the time you're 40? I would have laughed on your face. I'd be like, and you know what? I made 30,000 threes last season, but no books. That's what I would have said when I was 12. Now, I have a miniature library in my house. And my kids are reading more than I ever did, so I'm feeding that forward. So that's huge too. So always have a growth mindset. And again, you can read up on what that means too. There's authors and books and movies about that, I think, now too. And then the last thing is just being kind in everything that you do. And trying not to get upset, trying not to complain. And that's hard. You got to be gritty. You got to have a growth mindset if you're going to be kind in everything that you do. For example, if you have a crew that's working and they break something, and you get that call, you get that text, how do you react? If you have a student who you're on your phone 30 minutes out of every period, what are you doing? You know, being kind. You can also balance that with your family too. You know, you come home 4 kids running around. As soon as I get home, what do they want to do? Make noise, jump on daddy, all that stuff. You know, just be kind, let them. You know, it's that grittiness, it's that growth mindset. Are you willing to read? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to kind of let it all go? And that also comes down to our faith. It's huge with our faith, right? So how do I balance it? It's being gritty. It's making sure I'm always reading and learning from other people too. It's huge. YCP, when I first heard about it, Bill, Janan, they came to me and talked to me about it. And they said, hey, we got this YCP thing. We think it'd be great. Come on over, check it out. And I thought it was like, you can provide, or something like that. The Y and the C and the P. Instead of young Catholic professionals, like, that's I've never heard of that. And so I learned more about it. And, I was on the board for a while, and family obviously grew, and I made hard choices, made tough choices. You got to do that too, and balancing things out. And I've been humbled and blessed to be asked to do this. So, you have opportunities to do all those 3 things, to be gritty, to keep learning, have a growth mindset, and then to be kind, but it's not easy. But you can. Okay, you can. Even if you didn't have an uncle, if you didn't have sports, and you've been cradle Catholic your whole life, you've got that confidence in you, and you are awesome. You can do whatever it is that you want. So there are a couple business things that I do want to mention. A lot of you are thinking about skills, like what do I develop? I think right now what I look for in project managers, candidates for teaching, I'm also the science department chair, so I do all the hiring in the science department. We got 18 teachers in the science department, so I do all the hiring there. We look for, number 1 is communication knowledge. You got to be able to communicate. Communicate quickly. The longer it takes, people expect you to be communicating consistently and quickly. Okay, so if you got that text, like I'll be checking my phone when I get back out in the truck tonight before I drive down and see my wife, because that text thing in front of the family doesn't do too well. So you pick and choose your moments. But yeah, if somebody just texts me about a job, or one of my listings, or one of the candidates we're hiring for teaching, I'm going to take care of that right after this. So communication, and quick communication, is huge. Another one is organization, and you got to be flexible with this. So I have a project manager who we just got him on board. He loves Trello for project management. Awesome software. I've never used it, but I'm not going to say no. We're not using it. We're going to still use my Google Sheets and all of my scheduling on there, and that's it. No, I'm like, yeah, I'll learn. Let's go for it. So organization, you got to be flexible. Okay? I work with other companies too that they're like, hey, we use Exactly, and so we're going to hook you up, and you got to use this. And we're like, no problem, I got you. Okay? Instead of sitting there complaining, oh, this is the 7th software I've had in a month that I got to learn and read up on and stuff like that. No, it's okay. We'll get it. So those are 2 huge things that I look for in any candidates or any of my partners or any of the subcontractors that I work with. It's huge. And then finally, the entrepreneurs in here. So this is something that my mom, growing up, and I told you a little bit about her at the beginning, but growing up, it was always like, my dad will kick your dad's butt. I would say, my mom will kick your dad's butt. She's awesome. She's tough. She's run companies. She was an executive for America West before she moved back to Alaska to run a hospital, and now she's running friend contractors up there. I mean, it's phenomenal. So these are her big things with us opening up the Alaska branch, and then, well, that was the original branch. I mean, we opened up the Arizona branch, and she said, you got to do 3 things for your business to run well as an entrepreneur. She said, number 1, you need to do your financials. You don't hand them over to anybody else. You do them. You can get help with them. You can get people to help you with your accounting, obviously, with your books, but you be a part of your financials. Don't let those, any entrepreneurs, even if it's, my wife and I started a consulting business called Faithful LLC when we got married, just because we're like, hey, we want to be business owners. We're going to call it consulting. So we're going to go around and just help people whenever they need it. Most of it was free, but hey, we're entrepreneurs right off the bat. So please make sure that you are part of your financials. If you're already kind of giving that away, reel it back in, because you can get a lot of headaches off your chest if you get those financials wrong. Number 2, always, always, always pay your taxes. Always, as a business owner, do not forget those. It's got to be on the top of your list. Or if you're going in an interview and it's a smaller company, ask them, like, hey, tell me about your bookkeeping. Tell me about your accounting. Those are great questions. And then obviously, hey, have you ever been late on your taxes? Those type of questions. And it could be anything, any type of tax that you have. And then thirdly, with entrepreneurs, please make sure that you have adequate insurance. That's huge. So if you're about to start a business, workman comp for us is huge. It's the biggest thing. We pay it weekly, just so we make sure everything's covered. So those are 3 entrepreneur pieces that are like adamant in our family. Okay. Please make sure that you're part of your financials. Please make sure you always pay your taxes, and please make sure you have enough adequate insurance. Even if you have a consulting business, you should look up insurance. You never know. You want to keep yourself safe. Anyway, I could talk all about business and all the 3 different businesses, but I do want to open up for questions. Please remember, let's see, I've got started with a guiding business when I was in college. I took over my grandfather's guiding business when he died, took it over for several years, took out some Major League Baseball players and stuff, fishing. My wife and I did a consulting business, still have that, it's still active. High school teacher, construction, and general contractor. We do all commercial and residential. I had my KB2 in Arizona, so. And then real estate. My mom was on HGTV too twice. She's how I learned how to do real estate. You look up Island Living, she's on there 2 episodes. She did it. Yes, if you've ever seen that. All right, questions. I know I threw a lot at you, but I'll try to keep the room excited. Any questions? Yes?
What's your prayer like?
Family. So we pray every night with the kids. We have our set prayers, and then we go around and we let all the kids say a prayer. And it's not a written prayer, it's just whatever's in their heart. And we do it every single night. Now, before my firstborn was born, it wasn't something we planned. I mean, we went through some ups and downs with any marriage you do. It wasn't something where this whole daily plan or daily prayer thing happened. We had a pretty hard time, and we watched the movie Fireproof. We did all this stuff that our family was trying to help us with, and all this stuff because there was a couple things we didn't see eye to eye on. The budget was one of them, and so that was a difficult one. So we had our bumps and bruises, but prayer life. My wife. So after the kids and they pray and everything like that, they all do their thing, go to bed, and some of them stay up now because their oldest is 15 and a half. But then my wife and I pray before we go to sleep every night. Other things that we've done, my wife and I have done, we've read the Bible to each other twice. We've done it once cover to cover, and then we did the whole in order thing too. It takes a good 1.5 to 2 years to do that. But that was really cool. That helped us a lot.
What's like an average routine look like for a day?
For a day? I do get good sleep. That's one of your questions. And I used to coach high school. It's funny because I used to coach 2 or 3 sports every season. And backtrack a little bit. I didn't have my real estate license until my mom left to Alaska. She was the realtor. Right. And she built the same family. I was like, what's going on? But you always have to have one of the family. So she left, and I got my license and stuff. But I was coaching for a long time. Coached for like 15 years at Desert Vista High School, where I used to coach. The deal was, though, when my oldest became 6th grade, then I switched from coaching other people's kids to coaching my own kids. So my schedule really changed when I gave up high school coaching piece, and I started focusing on the business, more on the business side. So today, average day, wake up at 6, try to do something active. This whole pandemic thing hasn't really helped the physicality of people. Some people are a lot better at that. But yeah, so wake up like 6. I have my own little 3 prayers that I read every morning. Nothing too formal or anything like that, just asking for help, peace, helping others. And then usually kids wake up about 6:45. I walk in, I say, rise and shine, because I expect them to rise and be a light for others. And that's something they can tell their grandkids and stuff. So I wake them all up and say, rise and shine. And then usually by that time, I've either taken could be 5 or 6 text messages or 5 or 6 emails, in between, just kind of checking my phone while I'm eating and working out or whatever. And then I go teach. And so I get a 5-minute break every time in between classes, and I get a 25-minute lunch, and I can do 3 or 4 emails or 4 or 5 text messages in 5 minutes. So all my project managers, my bookkeeper, everybody always asks questions, so I just keep on top of that. And then afterwards, my kids usually get home about 4, so I've got about a 30-minute gap there. Start making some calls, make sure orders are all good. I have some listings, and so I just schedule those, or start scheduling stuff. But yeah, and then I'm home by 4. I let them all jump on me, I'm dead tired, let them all wrestle and stuff. And then by that time, it's time for dinner. We do our dinner, we do our prayer, and then I stay up for probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours, either looking at how market trends are going, my own personal investments. I talk to my parents a lot at that time because they're an hour or 2 earlier, so I talk to my parents a lot. And then, yeah, go to bed by 10 and enjoy it again. Yes?
Just really appreciate your talk, and I know you're in that detail. When's this real estate market going to stabilize? It's like a seller's market right now. How can outbid from, I think, people from California.
Right. No, you're exactly right. I mean, obviously, anybody who would know, it'd be phenomenal. But I actually enjoy the competitiveness on the buyer side, because you got to know yourself, and you got to make sure you're around somebody who knows, their stuff, or knows more than you. And so that's one thing I always try to make sure is I educate my clients when I'm taking them out. I'm letting them know market trends and letting them know numbers. I use data a lot to show them and represent, on the buying side. On the selling side too, it's like, hey, this is where you're at, this is what we're capable of, and we'll try it, but just be ready to that growth mindset. So I'm always trying to help people. It's a way for me to evangelize, because I'm always trying to help people with, don't worry, it's going to work out. It's going to work out. So that's kind of, I don't have the market prediction, but it's definitely an educational piece. Yeah.
What are some things that have helped you balance work life and family life?
Yeah, the biggest thing, there are gaps in the day that you really got to focus on your family. So your family needs you. I have a couple master's degrees, and one of them is in administration. And so there was a time in my life where I was like, do I want to become an administrator? And so I literally walked into one of the administrator's offices that he was just about to retire, and I said, any regrets? And because you always want to do that. You always want to grab somebody, and and the older I get, I appreciate the young people who are like, hey, tell me what I got to do with family and work, and I'm like, oh yes, okay, cool, because I messed up, and I'm going to teach you what not to do. Sometimes I get that one. So he told me, he said, hey, look, I got into an administration too early, because my kids were young, and so administration, you can't go home when you want to. You can't go watch the game, your kid's game, when they're playing. You got to be on site. And so I prayed a lot about what can I do flexibility-wise, and then all of a sudden my mom calls me from America West and says, I'm moving to Alaska, you got to be the realtor. And I was like, well, I kind of get to pick my own schedule then, right? And work with people and stuff. So finding those times that are important for your kids is huge. And for your husband, your wife, my wife read about 26 pages of Wild at Heart. It's a book, there's a book out there called Wild at Heart. I read the whole thing, and it's like me in a nutshell. And I asked her to read the first, she's not a big reader. She doesn't like to read a whole lot. And, but she read the first 26 pages, and she understands, like, I love the mornings. I love being out in the morning and stuff. And so that's kind of like our time. But I know she loves the evenings. So I listen a lot to her at night and just be there for her and stuff like that. So you got to find type, you got to know the relationship that you have, know the person that you have, and purposefully find that time that's important for them. Right now it's my kids from 4 to 5:50. I don't do site visits. Rarely do I do a site visit during that time. And meals, I always have a meal and a prayer at night together. Whether it's my wife and I or with the kids, is awesome. All right, any others? Can't let me off the hook, have you? Yes, sir.
I think somebody mentioned it earlier, and I really appreciate the story. It's pretty remarkable, but, you know, one of the things I observed was that it seemed like you really didn't give up, you know, any of the trades or the jobs, professional capacity, you really haven't given anything up. Coaching, investing, real estate, you know, building, contracting. Was there one aspect of your life that you had to leave behind and move down the life that really wasn't conducive for you? It seems like you basically pursued it all and without pretty accomplished. Was there some that you couldn't keep doing?
YCP.
Yeah.
That's one example. And that tore at my heart. I mean, it took me a while to think about that. But I was on the board for over a year. And so things like that where you're like, you're pulled in that direction. But you also look at the windows. There's windows that close in your life. And I have a window right now with a 15-and-a-half-year-old, and there's a 5-year-old at home, and then there's another one on the way. But I have a window of opportunity to help that 15-and-a-half-year-old, and I've got a 13-year-old that we adopted, which is a phenomenal story too. And then my daughter is 12, she needs me right now, like that, because the other book I wrote, Second Wild at Heart, is captivating, and that helped me be a father to a daughter every time. So there's windows that you got to make some tough decisions. I've said no to jobs that I know, because right now my project managers, I do ask them wholeheartedly to not do more than 3 projects at one time, because no matter how many they do or don't do, I still get those calls. I still get text messages, calls, and emails. So I've limited. It's not that I've given them away or anything like that. I'm very blessed. Although I was on the board, I'm very blessed to come back as a speaker for YCP. So it's kind of like God will not shut doors, but He'll just guide you along the way. It also comes down to that whole fear factor type thing. Like my confidence rising. I don't know. I kind of put on that for you. My head down and all that junk. But that's what I do for my students too. You know, you kind of catch them. You're like, oh great, this guy's horrible speaking. We'll fall asleep. So, yeah, you know, you just find that confidence and you rock with it. Anything else? Bill, you got a question for me, don't you?
Now you get an idea about why we wanted to have that guy on our board? That's what I have to say. No. Thank you for being on the board, Jerry.
No, all good. All right, everybody, sit. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Jeremy, for your testimony today. We're so blessed to have you here as like a past board member, but also as a speaker. So let's give him a warm He definitely gave us some insight and knowledge to be able to carry to our workplace and also our faith in our personal life. So thank you. I would like to bring up our Director of Evangelization, Kim Pearson, to close us up in prayer.
And Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Saint Joseph, by the work of your hands and the sweat of your brow, you supported Jesus and Mary, and have the Son of God as your fellow worker. Teach me to work as you did, with patience and perseverance, for God and for those whom God has given me to support. Teach me to see in my fellow workers the Christ who desires to be in them, that I may always be charitable and forbearing towards all. Grant me to look upon work with the eyes of faith, that I shall recognize and admit my share in God's own creative activity and in Christ's work of our redemption, and so take pride in it. When it is pleasant and productive, remind me to give thanks to God for it, and when it is burdensome, teach me to offer it to God in reparation for my sins and the sins of the world. Amen.
Kim. I want to thank you, all that came tonight, and hopefully you were able to kind of get a glimpse of what YCP is, especially for those that are attending the first time. We also, YCP does offer a membership. It's, so YCP membership is you have to pay $150 to be in this membership, but you get, what is included in the membership is you get life coaching, career coaching, having access to a job portal, a spiritual hotline, be able to get discount for the national conference, and a directory and a lot more benefits. We have our director of membership that you can talk to, William Joyce, and also our assistant director of membership, Jimmy Forrest. If you have any questions, please make sure to come talk to any of the leaders. They're having to have their badge, or our director of the membership or assistant director of membership. They can definitely give you more information. We do have scholarships available for if you can't afford to pay the $150 per year. We do have scholarships available. So if you're interested, please come up to me and let me know that you're interested, and know that it costs us not a hindrance for you to do membership. So just know that we do offer, YCP National does offer that membership for people. So I just want to thank you for coming again tonight. Our next event will be our executive panel discussion on Thursday, June 17th at 7 p.m. And in July, we'll have another executive speaker series, just like this one, July 15th at 7 p.m. You can find all these dates and information on our social media accounts at YCP Phoenix, where you will find all the latest updates about YCP Phoenix. Lastly, this event would not be possible without the support of the YCP team. So if all the leadership team leaders can stand up, all this that you see would not be able to happen. So if you guys can stand up, these are the leadership team. A big support that, the funding and the help with us is our board members, and we actually have quite a few board members here tonight. So if you can stand up, board members, we have very and then of course their lovely wives, Cindy and Janan, they're here too. So as you can see, we do have support. We have a leadership team. We have board members that are here to support us as our chapter. So just keep on coming to our events. And oh yes, a raffle. We'll end up with our raffle, but yeah, thank you so much for coming. And then I want to invite Jeremy, because we want to do a selfie pic. You doing a selfie and the audience.
I'm not good at selfie. I tweeted 4 times.
You can pull the phone and let's see. Everyone can smile.
One, two, three. 1, 2, 3.
So raffle. We're getting the tickets. But yeah, thank you again for coming. Feel free to grab food, drinks. We have plenty left. So yeah, take some home. Maybe for breakfast, lunch, dinner. So
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you. How about one of our guests? Me.
Eat all this candy.
And then for future, you can go here, and then you can put the calendar on the end. That you can go take off yourself.